Texas Democrats have fled the state of Texas to Washington, D.C. They had a press conference that literally no one covered. And the Texas Democrats want you to believe they're standing up for democracy by ensuring that the democratically elected legislature of Texas cannot convene due to a lack of quorum. Imagine if the Republicans had done this. More importantly, though, and this is the distinct issue here, what the Texas Republican legislation proposes really isn't that off the wall or bad. In fact, the provisions the Democrats complain most loudly about have been dropped from the legislation, including a prohibition on Sunday voting. You can now do Sunday voting under this law in Texas. What the Democrats are actually doing is they're grandstanding. They're grandstanding in order to get media attention for their own lost cause. The Democrats want the For the People Act passed, H.R. 1. It's not going to be passed. But yet it's kind of surprising to me how much energy the American media itself is putting into trying to get the For the People Act passed when it can't get passed. The filibuster's not going away, yet the Texas Democrats are going to grandstand for it and campaign on it. If the Republicans serially did this, what would the Democrats do? What would the media do? And I've got a case in point. If you will recall, when Barack Obama was president of the United States, Nancy Pelosi had taken over the House of Representatives, and Republicans wanted to drill. And Sarah Palin led with the drill baby drill chant. The Democrats left and they turned off the lights in the House of Representatives. Maybe it was when George Bush was still president. But the Republicans wanted to pass some pro-energy, pro-drilling legislation. Democrats turned off the lights in the House of Representatives, turned off the cameras, and yet the Republicans were able to stay and get a lot of buzz and traction by having their cell phones available where they could film themselves. And the way the media of the day covered this was that it was a wasted effort by the GOP. It was going nowhere. They were wasting their time. They were avoiding going home to deal with the voters, that it was just absolutely a ridiculous performance stunt. That's how the American media covered the Republicans when they decided to camp out on the floor of the House of Representatives and demand more drilling. Now the media itself is fully in the tank on trying to get this bill passed. They've covered the Texas Democrats as if they're rock stars. They've pointed out how bold and brave it was. Now, 6 months ago, when Republican voters stormed the U.S. Congress and disrupted the county of the Electoral College, democracy itself was at stake. The Texas Democrats getting on a plane and fleeing the Texas legislature to ensure that the democratically elected body of the state legislature cannot beat their heroes. They got a case of Miller Lite. At least they had Miller Lite instead of Bud Light. They had Miller Lite, which is far better drinkable beer than Bud Light. They had a couple cases of it on their bus. Some of them took a private charter plane. By the way, none of them wore masks. We still have a federal mandate imposed by Joe Biden to wear masks on public transit. Some of these very same Democrats who are maskless were telling people that Greg Abbott was going to get them all killed by getting rid of the mask mandate in Texas, and yet they themselves chose not to wear masks. Why exactly is that? I mean, the level of hypocrisy in this, the media doesn't point any of that out, though. The media has played the game for the Democrats because they are so invested in the Democratic narrative against the Republicans right now that they can't even see straight, let alone cover the news honestly.